Hello, my name's Dan and welcome to my garden here in Essex in the southeast of the UK, USDA Zone 8B here. So, the purpose of the video today is to take you around and hopefully give you some ideas on the subject of food growing, home growing, allotmenteering, homesteading, smallholding, etc, etc, and hopefully you can find something that's relevant to you. So up until relatively recently I did have an allotment, about 203 square metres, about 2,185 square feet. So I've actually given that up. Several things in life I've had to deal with that require a bit more of my time, and so therefore I've had to give up the allotment. But that's just one thing that sometimes we have to do. We have to make adjustments and change things as events occur in life. So there we are. But anyway, what we're going to do is have a look around here and you can see what I've got growing and projects I've got underway, infrastructure, etc, and hopefully you can learn a bit from what I've got going on here. So I'm standing here in amongst my backyard orchard, my permaculture project, food forest, whatever you want to call it, and I'm expecting quite a good crop this year actually. Certainly had plenty of blossom, and indeed you can see over there on the pear tree, variety Concord, still got plenty of blossom. So we'll look at this a little bit closer later on. So before we get started with the main bulk of this video, let me know what you're growing in your garden, what size garden you've got, any hints, tips, advice, etc. you can either give myself or other people viewing this video. We'll get a nice bit of dialogue going hopefully in the comment section below, and hopefully we can all learn a lot from this video and each other. So there's going to be plenty of videos linked in the description box below. So many of the things that I'm going to be speaking of today, I will have made more detailed videos on that individual subject. So if there's anything you would like to learn more about, just to take the time to look in the description box below and hopefully you'll find a more elaborated video on that subject. Now, some of you may remember a month or so ago, something like that, I had a much bigger polytunnel in this area here, and you can now see I've got a smaller one. So this polytunnel here is 3 metres by 2 metres, which is about 10 by 6.5 feet. So once again, I've had a few things I've had to sort of pay additional attention to, time, etc, etc. So I've sort of slimmed down my project size a little bit, but that's fine. I'm okay with that, and I can still be very productive here. So this polytunnel here, it's a Feel Good UK polytunnel. I've got another one in the back garden. We'll have a look at that in a moment. That's been standing since about 2016, 2017, like that. Got this secured very well. Now, some of you may remember the reason that I had the problem with my last polytunnel because I got a tear in the cover and I failed to deal with it in time, and I ended up losing the cover. But it's all in the past, and we mustn't dwell on these things. So what we're going to do is have a look in here and you can see what's going on, and hopefully you'll find something interesting in here. So here I stand in the polytunnel. So some of you may remember that when, oh look at that bee, look, when the incident occurred where I lost the top of the cover of the old polytunnel, it was a rather wet time, and of course I got a nectarine tree variety Lord Napier here and peach variety Peregrine, two really delicious varieties of peach. It was a relatively wet time, and of course with regards to the growing of peaches and nectarines in a climate such as the UK, you can have bad problems with a condition called peach leaf curl, which the way I basically protect these trees is I protect them from rainfall year round. Some people just protect them, you know, during the winter, but the way I sort of deal with it really is I just don't let the trees get wet at all. And I've got these 2 trees here, I've got another one in the polytunnel in the back garden, and I've never had any issues of peach leaf curl with these or that one. So there we are. Anyway, I chucked a ton bag over each one, and it's obviously done enough to keep the rainfall off because there's no instant of peach leaf curl yet, which is absolutely grand. And I've actually got some lovely little fruitlets formed here, so really, really happy indeed. Now, I've got some seedlings going on in here. I'll just show you a few things of what I've got growing. I will be making a more dedicated video to what I'm actually growing this year in time. So here I have got some chilies, variety Onavec, which I'm actually growing. They're from Home Safe Seeds, from crops I grew last year. I've got long purple aubergine and also white Dorger aubergine. So grown all of these varieties before, so they're going in here. So you can see here I've got this mini greenhouse, mini polytunnel, whatever you want to call it, within this polytunnel here. And this really helps because it gives it a little bit of extra protection and warmth here, particularly useful on cold nights. We're still getting frosts at the moment. I've got perpetual spinach here and white albino beetroot here, which is absolutely wonderful. Tomato plants down here. But yeah, pretty happy with how this setup is. I've got it nicely secured, and I will be keeping a closer eye on the cover so we don't have any more accidents like we had before. Let's carry on. So this area here, this was part of, or the old polytunnel actually covered this area here. So been working on building the soil, building the growing medium in this area here for a few years now. In fact, before I had the other polytunnel, because I was growing in it then. So this soil here is very, very good indeed. Always adding matter to it in the form of compost, etc. So expecting some good crops to come from this area this year. So here, under this fleece here, they don't actually need the fleece for protection. I've just got it there to keep the birds off. I've got some cauliflowers here, variety all year round. So expecting crops from them probably, I don't know, maybe July, August time, something like that. Now, grapevine here, this is variety Rhea. This is a Slovakian variety. It was in the polytunnel before, many of you will remember. Expecting a good crop off of this year. Grapevines, they produce fruit off of canes which come from the previous year's growth. So, plenty of growth, and I'll put it behind the fence here. I will, make a sort of better, more dignified way of tying this up in time, but I've got to do everything, when I get the time to do it, etc. So should be just fine as it is, because it is actually being supported, so should be enough to hold a crop there. Variety Riesling here, German wine grape, should be absolutely lovely, should be able to get a good crop off of this. What I've done is made a little structure here, a little teepee out of runner beam bamboo canes, so that's really good. Blueberries here. Any of you growing blueberries out there, let me know, because really lots of blossom this year, so I'm expecting some lovely crops off of those. And here I've set some carrot seeds in a container here, growing some giant carrots, so that should be quite interesting. So this is a variety called Championship Stock. Got it growing in this container here, which I imagine was once in somebody's loft, but I'm utilising it here as a plant growing container, whatever. You can see I've got a net curtain over this. The main reason I've got this on is for two main reasons. One is to protect it from, or protect the seeds, seedlings, etc. from birds at this early stage. And although carrots are one of the crops that can germinate in lower temperatures, a little bit of extra warmth provided by the net curtain here, it can only help. So particularly at night, because as I stated, we're still getting frosts, etc. So yeah, stay tuned for them and we'll see what we end up with. Some giant carrots would be absolutely wonderful, wouldn't it? So here I stand in this part of the garden. So in front of me here, I have my no-dig mound. Earlier in the year, I added plenty of compost to this, so I'm expecting some lovely crops to come from this year. So what have I got growing in this area here? Strawberry variety Malling Centenary. Now this is a relatively modern variety of strawberry. Chances are if you bought supermarket strawberries, you'll have either tasted or seen this variety for sale. They're very important commercially and a very nice tasting strawberry indeed. I've got some lettuce all year round growing in there. Now I've got two varieties of brassica here. Here I have kale, Nero di Toscana, and here I have cabbage, earliest of all. It's had a good crop of this variety of cabbage, earliest of all, last year. You'll find a video to that in the description box below. And I'm hoping by around June, July time to have some lovely crops off of those. So that would be really nice if that happens. And I've got it covered up with this fine netting here. With regards to the covering of brassicas, you want to make sure the netting you use is very fine, because cabbage white butterflies, they can really wriggle through, and you don't want that to happen. That can be very frustrating indeed. They're not around yet, but they will be around later in the year. At least around here anyway. Do you get cabbage white butterflies where you are? Let me know, whether you're in the UK or in another part of the world. Let's talk about cabbage white butterflies and see who gets them or not. Now, compost. This is a tumbler, otherwise known as a Dalek, and what I do with kitchen scraps, etc., I put them in there and it makes me compost over time. I don't ever turn compost in these Dalek compost bins. It's too fiddly for me, too awkward, so I just let the worms do it and the bacteria, etc., and eventually I end up with some nice compost that I could get from there. So Dalek compost, very good, and a nice low maintenance way of making your own compost. And the tumbler, of course, doesn't look too untidy in your garden or at your allotment. So we'll talk about this part of the garden here. So it's actually behind the polytunnel in the front garden. I've got all sorts going on here. So got grapevines, assorted varieties here. Once again, fruiting off of canes from the previous year's growth, so plenty of growth on these last year, should be getting a good crop. I've got a tea plant down here. Now this actually got zapped a little bit in the frost, but it should be okay, and hopefully within the next few years I'll be able to make a pot of my own delicious home brew, so wouldn't that be wonderful? Now, earlier on, I spoke about the subject of composting in Dalek tumblers. Now, this here is a way that I produce quick compost. I make usable compost in about 6 weeks, something like that, using these big tubs here. Check the video out in the description box below if you want to learn how to do it. But I mainly use grass clippings, which I get from lawns, etc., that I cut for other people, and also cardboard as well, which is generally relatively easy to get hold of. So it's a quick way that you can make your own compost, so you might want to look into those videos. So we're back here again. Now, behind the grapevine here, there's an apple tree which is coming into blossom, which is lovely. So I actually grafted this tree myself a few years ago. I got the scion for grafting from Stephen Hayes. That's a very good YouTube channel in my opinion, and probably the gardening channel that inspired me the most to start my own YouTube channel, which is over eight years ago now. So Stephen Hayes, check that channel out indeed. And if you like my videos and whatever, you should probably thank him, because he was one of my biggest inspirations to actually start this channel. But yeah, tree's very good actually, and they produce some big apples like this. Now, very sillily, I didn't make a note of the variety it is, so I don't know what variety it is. I'm hoping that I'll be able to email or send Stephen a picture of a resulting apple this year, and he can identify it for me. But either way, nice tasting big apples, so really, really good. And you might want to look into grafting your own fruit trees eventually. I've done it many times now, and it really is not that difficult, certainly in the case of apples anyway. So if you want to go a little bit further with your gardening, grafting can be a great thing to get into. So back here in this part of the garden, you can see my IBC container here. I don't know if you can see that one there. I've got two there. Each one contains about 1,000 litres of water. I've got capacity here for around 4,000 litres all in all of water. Now, it sounds a lot, but last year I ran out relatively quickly. We had that period of drought and hot weather, etc., and one may be surprised just how much water they need for even a relatively sort of modest sized project. But even if you can have just one water butt, it's a great idea, because rainwater is very good for the garden anyway, and every little helps, as they say. So you might not want one of these, because I can understand that not many people would want a great big IBC container in their garden. I suppose at an allotment it wouldn't be quite so out of place, but in your general garden, you get the idea. So you could consider a normal sort of water butt. But yeah, look into saving your own water. So basically all you do, got me tap there, and then there we are. Put something under there. You can get all sorts of devices to make it a bit more dignified than that if you want. But yeah, look into it, and you quite often get those and water butts second hand as well. So we're going to go into that polytunnel there, and we'll see what's happening in there. So many of my long-term viewers will be well acquainted with this tree. This is peach tree variety Dixie Red. It's a US variety, gives me beautiful crops year after year, and I'm expecting the same once again. It's getting quite big now. We're now to here. I'm going to eventually let it take up most of the polytunnel here, because it does produce a huge crop, and really lovely. I do have to keep it pruned. I made videos on the upkeep, pruning, etc. of peach trees. You'll find one of those in the description box below, but you might want to look into that. So here, blueberries. Got some blueberries here, and you saw some out in the garden. You do have to cover up blueberries if you've got them growing outside, because birds really do adore to eat the little berries. So be vigilant in those regards. I'll just show you the sheer volume of blossom on these. So here we are, you can see just the sheer volume of berries on these plants here, so that's wonderful. Now blueberries, they're like a nice acidic ericaceous growing medium, about 4.5 to 5.5 pH. So if you can achieve it, that's grand. You can get organic feeds that can help you achieve that, etc. So you might want to look into something like that. Now with regards to varieties, Elliott, Spartan, Duke and Blue Crop, I think they're 4 that I can remember that I think I've got here. So should be nice. Even if just 3/4 of these flowers here become berries, I'll still have a lovely crop. So that's really good. If you're going to be keeping blueberries outside, like you saw the ones earlier on, you want to cover them up with a net, because birds absolutely adore to eat these. Even if a bird gets in this polytunnel when I leave the door open in the summer, so it doesn't get too hot and sort of stuffy in here. You need to keep good ventilation really. If a bird gets in here, it really, even then it can start to eat the crops. So be vigilant, because you're not the only thing that wants to eat your blueberries. So down here I've got a variety of potato called Condor. So I had some comments a while ago, I think, yeah, people saying they couldn't get hold of Condor seed potatoes this year, which I certainly found the same actually. I went to try and buy some and I couldn't find any for sale either. So let me know whether I'm wrong. Maybe I just didn't look in the right place, who knows. But if you manage to find a source of Condor seed potatoes, comment in the description box below, because I'm sure many people would be very grateful if you know where you could get some, because they're a nice variety. And I was made aware of the variety by Tony from the channel Simplified Gardening. It's a very good channel, that is. He grew them and I watched one of his videos, and of course I'm not the only person who grew them because of his videos. So yeah, they're a nice variety. So let people know in the comment section below if you could get hold of any. I was lucky because I had a few left over from last year. One I planted here, and I think I planted about 3 outside in some containers. So yeah, I've got some. So I'm very grateful, but I didn't have many. So there we are. What else have I got? Now, I've got a variety of celery here. This is full white celery, self-blanching celery. I planted this on the 19th of February there. Grew it last year. It's a nice variety of celery actually, and low maintenance, very low in fact. Now celery seeds are very small, so when you plant them, you know, they can be quite sort of fiddly if you grew them individually. So really what you'd want to do is put them into like a sort of tray and then prick them out at a later date, but I can't budget time to do that sort of thing. So I've actually modular sown mine here, and I'll just plant the whole module out in probably a few weeks, a month or so, something like that. And I'll just you know, I'll just have smaller stems of celery, but I'm really not worried about that. So yeah, nice variety of celery, full white celery. So here I am back in the backyard orchard. So cherry tree here on a minaret rootstock. This is variety Stella, first self-fertile variety of cherry introduced to the UK, if I remember correctly, the year 1968, from British Columbia in Canada. Lovely variety of cherry. I've got it covered over here with some netting. You really want to do that. Birds adore cherries, even if they're not ripe. Loads of pigeons around here that love them. Some people tell me they get away with growing them outside uncovered. I never have, but maybe it's different where you live. Got a variety of pear here, Concord. We'll have a little look at that because it looks lovely with the blossom. I've got Worcester pearmain apple over there, Gala apple on the corner there. I bought that from Aldi a few years ago for £4, so that's really good indeed. Got a variety of plum here, variety Jubilee. One of the parents of this is Victoria, so that's a really lovely variety of plum, big size plum like a chicken's egg. Had quite a nice crop of those last year. Had a lovely display of blossom, so hopefully I'll get some nice fruit on here this year. We shall see. Grapevines here, I've got 2 of them, I think. Varieties Lakemont seedless. That one there I took from a cutting, and the one over there, we'll have a closer look at that in a moment. I actually bought that. That was a grafted variety, so got lovely crops off of those last year. You can grow grapes in the UK, no problem at all. In fact, well, at least in this part of the UK anyway, no problem at all. And yeah, they grow very well. maybe comment in the comment section if you live, wherever you live in the UK, and let people know your experiences of growing grapes, because yes, in terms of UK, we can get some of the warmest and longest summers down here, and if you live in maybe further north or something like that, maybe you grow grapes but you take a different approach to growing them. Maybe let people know the varieties you grow, because in terms of growing exotic fruit in the UK, depends on your definition of exotic, of course, grapes can be a very good choice because they're not that difficult to grow, at least around here anyway. But share your experiences, because I'm sure many other people will be interested as well. So yeah, I mean, look at these. Variety Concord, absolutely lovely. Partially self-fertile if I remember correctly, so you can get away with only one tree. Really nice indeed. And this is variety Onward. And I was actually given this. A friend of mine, he sadly is no longer with us. Years ago I was a care assistant, and the chap I looked after, he was a keen gardener. He had like a big garden, and I went and looked at it one day. His garden was just fantastic. Once again, he was one of probably my biggest inspirations to start gardening. These people that help you on the way, you remember them, don't you? There we are. But as I stated, sadly no longer with us. But before he passed, him and his wife, they gave me this, and I've kept it, and I'm hoping for a nice crop this year. Certainly got plenty of blossom. So variety Concord and Onward there. Lakemont seedless grape here. Many of you have heard me say it many times before, but Lakemont seedless is a delicious grape, almost honey sweet when ripe. Recommend growing that variety very strongly indeed. Nice for dessert. And a friend of mine, he's several years ago now, I haven't seen him for a while, he tells me that I gave him some grapes a few years ago, and I'm still waiting for my bottle of wine from him. We'll see what happens. He's got a rather relaxed approach to life, but when I get that wine, I will maybe we'll do a bit of sampling on camera and we can see what it tastes like. It's always interesting. Anyway, let's look at some other stuff. So we'll have a little look at what I've got growing here. So mainly fruit trees. Got a variety of cherry here called Sunburst. It's growing in a 230 litre container. This big container here and that one down there, which too contains a Sunburst cherry, I got them from the local auction. It can sometimes be worth looking, eBay, local auctions, Gumtree, etc. for things such as this if you want them, because you can save yourself a little bit of money, and of course it's great for recycling as well. So variety Sunburst, one here, one there, plenty of blossom. Here I've got a long keeping apple called Winter Gem, really lovely. We'll see how that does. Got a variety of plum, Victoria. Got some figs down here in containers, absolutely lovely. And this variety of cherry here, if I remember correctly, this was sent to me by Thompson & Morgan because they used one of my videos in one of their articles. So they sent me this free of charge. So very interesting to see how this does. I'm very grateful to them for sending it to me. So you've got to make sure when you are growing, well, anything in containers really, that you keep them watered. So once again, of course, you've either got to have some mains water available, or water butts, water containers, etc. So just be aware. It can be very easy to get plenty of trees in containers, shrubs, bushes, plants, crops, whatever you want to call them, and end up with a massive watering issue that you've got to water. So you've got to think of the amount of maintenance you're generating when you're growing things, etc. Once again, when it comes to the growing of fruit trees, you need to make sure you look into rootstocks, because you really don't want subsidence issues. But plenty to be considering. Here I've got a variety of pomegranate. Now this is deciduous, meaning the leaves fall off during the colder months. And you can see here, look, that there. So it did produce some small pomegranates last year, but the one that got to later in the year, it wasn't edible. I accidentally knocked it off. Whether or not it would have ever got to an edible state, who knows? But that is fully hardy, but so far it's only been ornamental. But we'll see just how that does this year. If we get a good summer, whatever, I might even put it in the polytunnel. We'll see what happens. So, spoken about quite a variety of things here. Comments, questions, whatever's, please feel free to comment, question, ask, whatever you want in the comment section below. And yeah, so plenty of videos to come up. Yeah, nice time of year, plenty to look forward to. Let me know how your garden or your allotment is doing, and we'll speak next time. As always, thanks for your time.